Then the 360, as far as being built, Xbox is saying it just wouldn't make sense for them to convert all of those games in Xbox Live. And believe me, there's tons of games in Xbox Live that Microsoft has made possible for the 360. So it really wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, for Microsoft to overhaul all those games just to be played on the Xbox One. Well, if they made the Xbox One compatible with the 360, then all of that would be not a non-issue, wouldn't be a problem. But because Microsoft wants to continue to push the envelope, they don't like being tethered to one type of technology, which is something that I like. They don't like being tethered to one type of technology. They want to be able to build something the way they feel it should be built. And they made the Xbox One with architecture that would make it much more developer friendly. That was a problem that Sony had for a long time. Sony has been notoriously known throughout the industry as being very difficult to program for, very difficult to make games for. It hasn't stopped them from coming out with games, but the sheer volume of games that PlayStation 3 has versus 360 is not the same. The 360 has a huge, I mean, it's I can't even think of the number in terms of how much more games the 360 has available than does the PlayStation, but it's a lot. Because the PlayStation 3 is just not as easy to program for, so a lot of developers will not risk certain games being made for the PS3 because it's just too hard to program for, so they focus more on just main titles and stuff like that. But this non-backwards compatibility issue didn't hurt Xbox when the Xbox 360 came out. It wasn't backwards compatible with the original Xbox, so I don't see it hurting Microsoft this time around either. But one thing that I think will really hurt these new systems is the fact of them not letting you play used games. And that's another report that's coming to us that according to Yahoo Games, they reported that the Xbox One will play used games, but it's going to cost you, is what they're saying. Since the rumors have been going around whispering about Microsoft's next generation console over a year ago, one of the most controversial topics has been the fate of used games. And Yahoo reports that some reports said the system would make it impossible to play them. Analysts scoffed at this, saying that Microsoft wasn't stupid enough to alienate a substantial portion of its audience with such a sweeping move, not to mention anger its biggest retail partner, and we all know who that is. That's GameStop. That's Microsoft's biggest retail partner, because GameStop is the king of used games, swapping games out and so forth. And they see a significant revenue from the used games. Matter of fact, they make almost as much revenue from used games as they do new, because people come in all the time trading in new games for old games for new games and stuff like that. And then other people who couldn't afford the new games come in and buy those used games, and it's just big business. And today Microsoft itself finally weighed in on the matter. Though if you were hoping for a crystal clear clarity, into what they're doing, again, based on this answer, you're going to be disappointed. Here's what Microsoft said. The company wrote, they said, "We are designing Xbox One to enable customers to trade in and resell games." The company wrote, we'll have more details to share on that later. Now, what does that mean? We're designing Xbox One to enable customers to trade in and resell games. What does that mean? What do you mean you're designing Xbox One to do that? Right away, that tells me that maybe it's going to have something to do with, maybe you have to download games used, online or something, because you don't have to design a console to accept used games unless you're trying to design it not to. You see, because if a console will play, you design it to play discs written in a certain format, the machine doesn't know it's used. The machine sees the disc, and if it has a program on it that it can read, it reads it. It doesn't know it's used. If I bring a computer disc over to Devin that I have at home, the computer doesn't know, oh, this is a used disc. You didn't buy it brand new. The computer doesn't know that it's used. because as long as it can read the information, it can read it. You see, so when they say they're designing Xbox One to be able for people to be able to resell and play games, we got to watch that. I don't know if we're going to be having resale the same way we used to have when it in GameStop, where you just bring your discs in and you sell that, and then you could buy a used disc and come back. I don't know. It looks like what Microsoft is saying is that it's going to be some kind of a downloadable used situation, which would still hamper GameStop. Now, as long as the old systems remain in play, the 360, which Microsoft did say they're going to still support. Microsoft said they're going to support the 360 for years to come. So that's a first for Microsoft, that they're going to continue to support their system. However, the fact that the used games may not be, for these next generations, may not be physical. The used games may only be able to be downloaded, sounds the death bell for GameStop as far as their used game division. Because I'm telling you that GameStop makes a huge amount of money selling used games. And if they can no longer sell the physical used games, that's going to hit them, I mean, that's going to hit them hard, because they're not going to be able to compete with the Targets and the Best Buys and so forth just on selling new games. Their claim to fame is the fact that you can go in and trade games and swap. And matter of fact, they give you store credit. If I have 10 games, I get enough money, maybe I can buy a Game Boy Advance. That's the point of GameStop. That's what makes GameStop so good, that if I have games I don't care about anymore, I could trade them in for something else. But Microsoft is saying they're going to design Xbox One to be able to accept players selling and reselling games. So we're going to have to see at E3 what Microsoft means when they say that, because yeah, this thing is sketchy. It's sketchy. So we're going to have to wait and see what Microsoft is talking about. Okay, so that's our game portion of what we're talking about here today on Tech Pulse. Now let's move on to another huge company, and that company is our old buddy Google. Now, how many of you know that Google has released a conversational search feature in its latest version of Chrome? Yeah, many people, you didn't know that, did you? Well, the reason why you didn't know it is because Google just quietly rolled that baby up. You know, Google didn't let too many people know that's what they were doing. Google's new conversational search feature is live right now. You see, you didn't know that because Google wasn't really making a big deal about it. According to the Next Web, they reported that Google's new conversational search feature is live in the latest version of Chrome. So if you download the latest version of Chrome, you're going to get this new conversational feature. Now, even though Google quietly rolled this thing out for Windows, Mac, and Linux, so it works on all of those systems, Google Chrome and all those systems, users that hit up the Google homepage will now see a small microphone symbol in the right-hand side of the search field, as well as at the top of any page containing search results. It will ask for permission to access a connected microphone before enabling conversational search queries. So the update means that users can now search the internet and ask Google questions from the desktop using their own voice. The idea is that people should be able to use words and phrases used in everyday conversation rather than strict keywords that have been embedded in our brains over the last decade or so. This is what Google is saying. So let me give you an example. The user could ask, for instance, how do I get to, say, Wembley Stadium or something like that, right? And Google will interpret the question and then serve up a relevant route information via Google Maps. As with Google Now, the service also draws on information stored through other Google products and services that they have. So if the user asks when their flight is supposed to leave or something like that, or if they're free later this afternoon, the service will automatically dig into Google Calendar, your Google Calendar account and stuff like that, and it will tell you based on that what the answer is. So if you have your Google Calendar up and you say, am I free this afternoon? It will look in Google Calendar and it will see if you have any appointments, and it will say yes, no, you're free. Subsequent queries can then be initiated using the phrase, okay, Google. That's the, if you want to query, you say, okay, Google. Similar to that found in its upcoming Google Glass hardware. Google is clearly developing these new search products as a context-sensitive personal assistant voice input system. But the ability to discover new information on the web and apply that to users' own daily routine is a powerful concept that Google is coming out with. And I'm telling you, Google is always up to something and doing something. And I think this new situation, their new conversational search feature, and to be honest, I'm surprised that Google hasn't made a bigger deal about them. When I say a big deal, I don't mean that they have to go dancing around in the clouds. But normally when Google is rolling out something that I feel is significant. Now, when I say I feel, I don't mean that if I feel it's significant, then Google must say something about it. What I'm saying is that this is a significant upgrade in Google's search results. So when Google puts this information in Chrome, because we all know Google Now. Google Now is their mobile digital assistant, personal assistant, however you want to put it, like Siri is for Apple, or Sherpa, that digital voice assistant that came from Spain. If Google Now can put this, not if they can, because they put this into their Chrome, the latest version of their Chrome browser. So if you download the latest version of the Chrome browser, whether you have Mac, whether you have Windows, or you're using a Linux operating system, doesn't matter. You download the latest version of Chrome, you're going to see this microphone in the right-hand corner of the search engine. And as long as you have a microphone set up on your home PC, which many of us do, or you have your computer has the built-in microphone, all you have to say is, okay, Google, and it activates, and you can now talk with your computer or talk with Chrome. Really, it's not really your computer, it's really Chrome, but you can talk with search results. If you have Google Plus, you have any of your Google surfaces, and you ask Google a question, am I free? Or do I have this song saved? Google will access all of your accounts to find out the answer to the question. If you want to know where a particular restaurant is, then Google will bring up Google Maps and show you right there. Now, they didn't say whether this conversational search feature talks back to you in terms of when you talk, does it respond? They didn't really say how that works. Obviously, all you have to do to find out is just try it. But from what the report says is basically when you say, okay, Google, and you initiate the Google conversational feature, you can talk rather than type. Rather than have to type in, where is this, or you want to look something up, or you want to see if your Google Plus account has something in it, or whatever it is that you want to find out with Google, you just ask Google and it will search your information and find it. I mean, Devin, do you think this is a good move by Google? Because I think this is something that, this is a step forward, that Google has their search browser linked in like with their Google Now, where it may not talk back to you, but the fact that I have a microphone now and I can actually ask the Chrome browser what's happening, or I can ask them, am I free? It can check my Google calendars. I can ask where something is, and it automatically looks up Google Maps. I mean, what do you think this is going to do for web surfing?
Well, they're going in that direction. Everybody has to, because, we're going to the Star Trek years, very soon. But I love integrated systems.
Right.
I love when you don't have to come out of one thing to use another thing.
Right.
When you flow right through one into the other, because they work with each other. That's why I'm such a unhappy. I'm such an un-Apple fan.
Right.
Because they are so separate